Good afternoon, all you beautiful people out there. Welcome to the channel. I'll be your host today, Doodleman149, and today marks the first episode of a new series for me. Welcome to the first ever viewer variance video. In this series, I'll take weapon builds suggested directly from you, the viewers and subscribers, and try it out in all three main game modes for me: Core Domination, Ground War, and Warzone. If two weapons are given at once, I'll try running both weapons as a class of their own, but I'll also give each weapon a run as a primary as well. If any of you have seen my gun workshop videos, I'll be following a very similar format here as I did with those, with one minor change. At the end of the video, I'll rate the viewer variants on a scale of 1 to 10 on how they perform in each of my three main game modes, and then a final score for the overall usability of the builds. Take a gander at this rating chart real quick to learn how I'll be ranking weapons. It might be a little different than how other people rate things, so keep that in mind. For our first video, today I'll be taking a couple builds from TZAV.GAMING. I'll leave a link to that channel down in the description below. As you can see, I've been given an AK-47 build and an M19 build to try. The AK-47 isn't my favorite assault rifle, but I do like the M19, so let's see how this goes. Before I hop into this, however, I'd like to encourage everyone watching to comment down below with the build you'd like me to try out. I've already had a suggestion from one of my Twitch viewers, Jughead, for an FAL build, so feel free to add to the pile. The build can be your favorite, a deliberately terrible build, or one you're curious about. It really doesn't matter. Just let me know what you'd like me to try out down there in the comments. But enough of my blabbing though, let's get into this. For the suggested AK-47 build from TZAV.GAMING, we start out in the muzzle section with the monolithic suppressor to keep us off the radar and to slightly extend our range. Next, the Spetsnaz Elite Barrel is used to boost our damage range and bullet velocity, while only costing us a little ADS speed. The TAC Laser is the next attachment on this build to give us an ADS speed and stability boost. After that, the 545x39mm ammo conversion is used to reduce our recoil and increase our fire rate while costing us some range and damage. This AK is finally rounded off by the Commando foregrip to stabilize our recoil and aim while having us move a little bit slower. This certainly is a bit of an oddball with some of the attachments here. The monolithic suppressor makes sense for an overall useful build, seeing as suppression is good in standard multiplayer, ground war, and especially Warzone. The Spetsnaz Elite Barrel is a great choice as it boosts range without hurting movement speed at all. The TAC Laser takes this rather clunky AR into a more respectable range regarding ADS speed. And the Commando foregrip keeps almost all your recoil strictly vertical, making it easy to compensate for. The 545x39mm rounds are what make this build a little different. The smaller caliber takes the base AK from a 3-shot kill to a 4 to 5-shot kill depending on the range. The heavier recoil of the AK-47 is reduced considerably by using these smaller bullets, and the fire rate is boosted. This ammo conversion gives this weapon more of an SMG damage profile, recoil, and rate of fire. What isn't offered by the build, however, is speed. While the base AK-47 isn't terribly slow, it is still one of the harder hitting ARs and is slower than its 5.56 counterparts. While speed certainly isn't everything, it just seems a little odd to me to be basically an AK-74U, except with the movement speed of an AK-47. That being said, this variant shredded enemies in standard multiplayer. It felt better than the regular AK. It gets an 8 out of 10 there. In Ground War, I admittedly struggled a little bit at some longer ranges, but medium range fights still seemed to go my way most of the time, probably due to that low recoil. For that mode, I give this variant a 6 out of 10. In Warzone, this build worked well enough. Up close, this gun melted most enemies. At medium range, it worked alright. I feel like the lower damage is really felt when armor's factored in. I only had a couple instances of long range fights using this, but I really wouldn't recommend it for that. I'd recommend pairing it with a sniper or a marksman rifle. For Warzone, this build gets a 6 out of 10 again. Now on to the M19 build from TZAV.GAMING. For this sidearm, we again start off with the monolithic suppressor to boost our damage range while also keeping us off the radar. The 5mm laser is our next attachment and is there to boost our hipfire recoil control while also boosting our sprint out speed. The Akimbo perk is next up in order to basically double our killing potential at the cost of forced hipfire. 32 round magazines are next used to maximize our ammo capacity and reduce our need for reloading as often. The lightweight trigger rounds this build off to greatly boost our fire rate while costing us some recoil control. The M19 offered by TZAV.GAMING is a fine sidearm. The monolithic suppressor is a good attachment option as it suppresses the weapon as well as boosts its range, something most pistols could use a hand in. The 5mm laser is a great option that I don't frequently use as it boosts sprint out speed while also tightening our hipfire spread, which can certainly come in handy when you get jumped at closer range while reloading. The 32 round mags are a bit much for me since I can certainly feel the slower movement speed with this build. The lightweight trigger is a must and an excellent choice. The Akimbo perk is great for this gun as the M19 has one of the highest fire rates in the game by basically allowing you to double its damage output. The Akimbo makes this build a beast up close. This variant works well as both a primary and sidearm in standard multiplayer. For that area, I give this build a 7 out of 10. When it comes to ground war, this weapon is going to struggle if you're looking to use it as a primary, basically because engagement ranges are so much longer in that mode. For sneaky ladder kills though, this weapon could easily clear an unaware squad. For ground war, I give this weapon a 6 out of 10. Now some of you may want me to judge this build against other pistols when used in Warzone, but I won't be doing that. Each weapon will be judged alone in terms of Warzone effectiveness. That being said, this variant's Warzone usage is average, but it's probably going to be beat out by SMGs up close. For Warzone, this weapon gets a 5 out of 10. And so that'll do it for my very first viewer variant episode. Just want to start out by thanking TZAV.GAMING for these weapon build suggestions. Again, the link to that channel is down below in the description of this video. This AK-47 build was honestly a surprise for me in standard multiplayer, since I really just don't care for the AK. After using this, that hasn't really changed, but this is certainly an option now for when my buddies and I play this game where we all use the same weapon. Its ground war effectiveness is admittedly limited, and using it in Warzone, technically Plunder felt fine, but I won't be swapping it out in any of my loadouts. That's not saying it's bad, mind you, I just prefer other weapons is all. For an overall score, I give the TZAV AK-47 a 7 out of 10, a notably above average weapon. Its recoil is low, it's stealthy, and it feels pretty strong despite the small caliber. I definitely recommend this build if you like the Modern Warfare AK-47. The TZAV M19 is a good build for the weapon. Pistols are admittedly limited when it comes to customization variety, but this build works very well for what it is. Its high ammo capacity and super spammy nature make it viable as a primary and secondary, while the 5mm laser helps more as a secondary. Akimbo is great, especially when it comes to taking this weapon into Warzone. It works really well in both standard multiplayer and ground war as a secondary. However, given that fact, it's still a semi-auto hip-fired pistol. This build's Warzone viability is limited. Overall, I'd give this M19 build a 6 out of 10. It's slightly above average through its spamminess and hipfire effectiveness. However, its Warzone usability and slight struggle in ground war drag this build down from a higher rating. And that's all I've got for this first viewer variant video. What do you all think of these builds? Do you think I judge them fairly, or are my opinions so off base that it isn't even funny? Either way, let me know in the comments down below. I personally had a ton of fun making this video and using these builds. It was refreshing to use a build I didn't come up with that is actually usable and good. Just a reminder, if any of you want to participate in this series, which could theoretically go on forever, just be sure to comment down below with a suggested build and I'll give it a try. Make sure to include all the attachments you want used so that I get the full experience you're going for. I hope you're all having a fantastic day, and I hope many more will come your way. I've been your host, Doodleman149, you've all been awesome, and I will see ya later.